Welcome to Slackin' Off with Brady Slack.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Slackin' Off. I'm your host, Brady Slack, and our guest today needs no introduction, mostly because we've already introduced him in another podcast. But without further ado, my partner, one of my best friends, Mike Scicluna. Thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, thanks for having me again here.
Anytime you want to be on, I will have you on, because we could even just sit here and talk about, like we were on for 15 minutes before we hit record and just talking about stuff. So why not, right?
Yep.
So obviously lots of people listen to the podcast that want to know, how do I start a business, or why should I start a business, or how can my business be successful? And we, about a year and a half ago, started a business because we didn't have anything better to do. And we kind of wanted to one, again, I do the podcast for selfish reasons. One, we want to highlight the business that we started, why it's awesome, what it does, the functions. But while we do that, we want to take everyone from concept, proof of concept, to acquisition or exit in that process, because within the last year and a half, we've hit every single stage of that business concept. Right? That's I think that's where we'll take the conversation. If that's
okay. we haven't sold the business yet, but we're at a point that we're talking about how we're going to get there.
And we are, like, we're determining valuations. We're having conversations with private equity and venture capital groups. That's just where the business has gone, which is great for us. But I think it's important to highlight that, because there's an opportunity for people to understand what their business might look like in any one of those stages. Okay. So last June of 2022, you called me and you said you had an idea. So let's talk about, we'll start with, obviously, Mike and I are partners in High Country Finance. High Country Finance is a full-service tax and accounting firm. We specialize in advisory-level services for entrepreneurs and investors. And a lot of our clients happen to be in the home services industry, whether that's roofing or pest control or solar. That seems to be a big one. And in those industries, they all pay commission reps. Right. And so Mike can kind of dive into what that looked like as far as what we were doing for some of our clients and why it was just a pain in the butt. There was a need. There was a pain. Right. Let's dive into that a little bit. What was that pain that we were experiencing that we were experiencing and that our customers were experiencing?
Yeah. So this is something that if you're looking to start a business, you can come about it two ways. You can look at what other people are doing and try and replicate that, maybe try and do it a little better. Or you can look for an area of the market that has a gap. If you've ever heard of or read the book Blue Ocean Strategy, this is the exact concept there. A red ocean is full of sharks and everyone's eating, and there's not a lot to go around. A blue ocean, there's no one else there. And that's the kind of market that you want to hit. And that's really where we came across the idea for STAKT. We, as a fractional CFO, my favorite place to live is in Excel. If you've got something that you want me to build in Excel, that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. I love doing it. I like to refer to myself as an Excel wizard. It's a lot of fun to me. It's very creative, but it's also analytical. And that's what CFOs really enjoy. So we had one of our clients who owned a solar dealership, and they came to me and they said, "Hey, we hate doing commissions. It's a huge pain in our rear end. It just takes up so much of our time. There's so many errors. Can you help with that?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, no worries. Of course I can. Like, I can do commissions all day. I've built commission models and I'm really good at math. I know how to, build really complex formulas and stuff." And we took it on.
Let me preface the rest of the story by saying this is one of those times where we said we could do it. And then we got into it and realized, whoa.
Exactly. And that's exactly how it went. I said I could do it, and I was very confident that I could. And then I got started and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. It seemed like every week for the first 6 weeks working with them, I would be like, okay, yeah, I understand this. And then by the next week, I was like, guys, this is just like, how is there more complexity? It just kept getting more and more complex. Just to give you an idea of what the spreadsheet ended up looking like, I would have one cell that would have about a page and a half worth of formulas just within that one cell, just to calculate all the different complexities of the red lines and the overrides and the different states. And every cell was referencing 3 to 4 other sheets. It was just a nightmare.
And it didn't
It
help
worked.
it didn't help that this particular client, from what we've seen so far, mind you, we've been working with solar companies for 2-3 years now, a year and a half plus specifically on commissions. This client in particular has had one of, if not the most complex commission structures that we've ever seen. And they continue to change it very consistently. So
that was the struggle is
Yeah.
they changed every 3 or 4 months. They said, oh, we're going to roll out a new commission structure. And then I had to make sure that my formulas looked at, okay, well, there's a new commission as of this date, but any jobs that are rolling in from before that date, they still have to be on the old commission structure.
Yeah.
So my spreadsheet was just constantly updated and changed, which it just took way too much time. It was very easy to have mistakes. Mind you, I can be very proud to say that when there were mistakes, they weren't in my formulas. But it's a matter of like trying to keep track of everything, trying to make sure that the data is entered correctly, that you're pulling all the data out correctly. It's a very, very difficult thing to keep on top of. So I think it's important for people to understand that you can essentially, as an entrepreneur, it's going to be important for you to tell people you know what you're doing and you've got it all figured out before you do. That's just part of being an entrepreneur. Because if you want to only do things when you 100% know that you can do them and you've done them before, then you're an employee. That's just the way it is. Part of being an entrepreneur is you say, I know how to do it, and then you go figure it out. We did that, and we realized we put our foot in at that time. Now, most times you can figure it out as an entrepreneur, but this time we were like, okay, we can figure this out, but it's way more work than it's worth.
Yeah.
So the next step is we were like, okay, well, as an accounting firm, what I like to do is I like to build repeatable processes. Now, sometimes those processes are in Excel or Google Sheets. Ideally, what I like to do is go find a software that can streamline things for us. If you work with us in our accounting firm, you'll know that we have about 6 different, well, you might not even know all the softwares we use, but most clients will have about 6 different softwares that we're running a lot of our processes through. That's so that we can eliminate human error, increase productivity, provide better reporting. There's a lot of things that go into that, but we provide value by finding the right software stack and giving it to people. So that's what I looked for. I said, okay, well, there's got to be someone out there that has built a commission software that can work for solar. We looked and looked and looked, and I could not find anything that would work, nor that was even worth it. Honestly, all of them were going to end up being very expensive if we did use them. And I like to call them Excel on steroids.
They were
Pretty much
limited.
every software
they
we
were
looked at.
limited.
Yeah, and so it was like I could pretty much get the same result just using Excel and not have to pay a whole bunch of money to get this. They just had some better reporting functions, essentially. But it wasn't really going to help for solar. So we hired a CTO. We hired an FP&A analyst. It was actually my dad. He came over to the US to visit, and he's like, hey, like, if you've got any work, like, I'd be happy to help out. And so I was like, yeah, if you can help out with this commissions, it's taking up so much of my time right now.
Just so happens.
Yeah, so it was a really, really fortuitous timing. So he was with us. He stayed with me for 3 months and, did 10 to 20 hours a week. And I got him working on this project. Now, he's been in software development his whole life. That's his whole career. That's what he's always done. And he, just sold off his last company and was just kind of looking for something else. So while he was here, and he really wanted to move to the US, so he was looking for jobs in the US. And he's like, if you've got any work, just, let me know, and I'd love to help out. So he started working on this, and after about a month of working on it, he comes to me and he's like, look, what you've built in Excel is phenomenal. It works really well. It's handling everything as well as it possibly can, but it's limited by the fact that it's in Excel.
Mm-hmm.
So what you really need is a database. You need a software that is run by a database that can keep track and present all of this information. So if you ever want to start a company and build this into a software, let me know. And my response was, well, funnily enough, just last week, one of our clients that we do commissions for had come to me and said, hey, man, if you ever want to turn this into a software, let me know. So basically, I could see that there was a clear enough opportunity there. I already knew that there was no other software that could do what was doing this. So I knew we were in a blue ocean. And so I kind of got everyone together and said, look, here's the opportunity. Is everyone willing to invest in this? So that's where we get to, that Brady said, where I came to him and I said, look, I think we want to start a company creating this software. Are you in? And Brady said, hell yeah, of course I'm in.
Because we did, like I said, because we didn't have enough going on at the time. We just decided to start another business. But I think it's important. I think what you said at the beginning is important, because we've highlighted STAKT. We've highlighted the idea. The idea of STAKT was to improve the ability that a company has to calculate, track, report, and pay commissions. Because there wasn't a lot out there. And so when someone's coming up with a business idea, I think, like what you said, it's important to either figure out if there's a way that you can improve something that's already been created, or is there a gap somewhere that you can bridge and create a product or a service to make money on. And the hard part with that, it's not really hard, but there's so many different ways that you can make something better or find a gap and improve that gap that I think it overwhelms some people. And one of, so I'll say this, one of the things that, I wish we've done it since, but I wish we would have done it at that point, is maybe take a week or two at the time when we had these conversations of saying, hey, I think we're going to take these spreadsheets and turn them into a software and then thus into a company. I wish we then would have said, okay, what other softwares are doing maybe what we've already done? And like you said, that there's, again, we've done that research since, but there really isn't a lot out there. I just wish we would have done that at the beginning rather than later on, because I feel like we could have, I don't say we could have gotten to market quicker, but we could have done some things differently to maybe improve what we did at the beginning. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I'm in two minds about that. And I don't necessarily want to advise people on the way we did it, because I almost feel like we got very lucky the way we did it. Because like you said, we didn't...
Extremely lucky.
Yeah, we didn't research every company out there that does this. We looked at a few different platforms. Now we have... on our pitch deck for investors, I think we have about 30 different companies that do commissions, and we've kind of looked at what everyone does. The companies that we saw, they did commissions, but they were very similar to each other, and we were like, well, we don't want to do it anything like them. We want to do it completely different. So here's where I'm in two minds. Now that we're looking at a lot of these different companies, like I said, they're basically all Excel on steroids. If we had looked at them back in the beginning, I wonder if it would have almost encouraged us to build more like they did. And then we would not be in a blue ocean. We'd be much more like them. And, we'd be like, oh, that's really cool what they're doing. But we're, just going to make it better, basically.
Yeah.
And I think that could have potentially hurt us. The other thing that could have potentially hurt us is when you start looking at all your competitors, it can be a little overwhelming because they're so much ahead of you. I mean, you haven't started, especially when it comes to something in software.
It can be
it's like, well, they've got all this and that. Yeah. It's like, how are we even going to get there? Whereas now that we're looking at our competitors, I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, well, you've got some things that we don't yet have that we're going to be able to build, but we have things that, you're a fully established company.
And you're never going to have.
Yeah. And that, so it's kind of like, okay, like there are some things that you have that we can, in the next 6 months, build in that would be nice to have, but the core aspects of our product, you're missing completely. And yeah, you may be able to build that eventually, but I don't think they see that. Like they're approaching the market in a completely different way to us. So they didn't even see that as an issue to solve. So that's where I'm in two minds. Like if we had looked at the market, we might have mitigated some of our risk. However, I think that we potentially have
Pigeonhole
struck
this.
gold because we didn't try and mitigate that risk.
I think you're right. No, that is a good perspective. Another thing that I think is important to highlight is at this point of this conversation, STAKT, the company that we're talking about, is an idea. We really haven't, besides building the commission models out in Excel for our clients, it's still an idea. But I think it's important to highlight the fact that that idea has to have some sort of proof of concept. You have to have some sort of idea to know that you're going to make money. And I run into this a lot with clients, and well, you do too. When we get on a consultation with someone and they say, I've got this business idea. Do I need to set up an LLC and a bank account? And it's almost like go make a dollar before you do all the legal stuff, jump through all the hoops, because you have an idea, but are you going to make any money on it? And I think the one thing that we did talk about this when we had the concept to get to proof of concept was what is our opportunity to make money like? And we kind of, again, this is where we go back to this blue ocean conversation. We realized that there wasn't a ton of competition, but there was a really big need. We were talking about very, very, very large solar companies in the country that have an entire team of accountants that are dedicated to managing Excel spreadsheets just to calculate commissions for their company. And, that's costing the company hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, where our product could save them hundreds of thousands of dollars a year and give them a better reporting. So that's kind of what led us into proof of concept. So we can fast forward through this conversation where we talk about it, we come up with the idea, we get the design, the logos, we registered the entities, and we're getting to the point where we have an MVP, a product that we can take to market and actually start to make money on. Tell us what that looks like. How did we get to that point? What bumps along the road did we experience so that we can kind of highlight those?
Yep. So real quick, I'm going to put a plug in for a book. If you know me at all, you know that I love reading books. I read a lot. So if you haven't read this book and you're thinking about starting a company, you need to read The Lean Startup. It's an incredible book. And this is where you'll understand the principle of an MVP, minimum viable product. So essentially, you don't want to perfect your product before you take it to market. You want to release it as early as you possibly can. So it needs to just have the smallest amount of functionality, release it, and then get feedback. And then you develop based on that feedback. So our minimum viable product was essentially, we said, okay, well, we can do commissions in Excel, but where's the major limiting factor? Well, the major limiting factor was in the reporting that we were sending to the reps that were getting paid commissions. The reason for that is if I just ran commissions once, I can send everyone a quick Excel sheet breakdown of here's why I'm paying you what I'm paying. Where it got difficult is when you're sending 100 plus reps reports each week that not only need to take into consideration what happened this week, but also need to take into consideration what happened over the last 6 months. So you need to have a really good way of tracking everything that's happened with this rep. Like, is there clawbacks from previous weeks that you need to take into consideration on this pay? Have you given them an advance? Are there any bonuses that were not yet paid out? Are there bonuses based on the sales that they made in the last 3 months? There was just all these incredibly difficult complexities that lasted, that carried over from week to week and month to month. And it was just a nightmare to keep track of. The second part of that nightmare was then reps would turn around and question, well, I don't think I got paid right. And like back 6 months ago. And then we would have to go combing through all of these different spreadsheets that we'd created, trying to find the data and then put together a report to show them. And it was a huge pain in the ass. We really hated doing that. So we said, okay, let's at least get that part into the software first. So we took all of the reporting aspect that we thought we could build out and we put it into our software. And then essentially we would, for our first 3 customers, we actually would calculate the commissions in Excel upload them into the software, and then report through the software. Now, for some of you, if you own a solar company, or if you own a company that pays commissions, you'd be thinking, okay, like that provides some value, but like, is it really worth it for the company? For these companies, it was worth it because they had such a massive pain from the reporting aspect that it did actually make it worth it. And we did charge them less than what we would have if the software was doing everything. So that was our MVP. And it almost doesn't even seem like the original MVP because it wasn't even calculating. Our second MVP was like, so basically we released that reporting function, and then we spent the next 6 months building out the actual calculation function. And so the first thing that we did, it was actually for our release at SolarCon, we got a testing ground essentially that we could show to people. So we call it our eval form, where you can plug in a number based on the sale amount, what size the system is, who was the one that made the sale, which EPC or installer you were using, a bunch of different things like that. And it will show on the screen, here's the commissions that you're supposed to be getting. So it was a really valuable tool for us to test and make sure that all the calculations were working the way they should. But it was also good for us to be able to show people like, look, we've got this calculation working. So that was MVP number 2. Now, again, I'm gonna lift up my skirt a little here and let you know how this went. The plan was to have calculations for live projects happening by SolarCon. We did not hit that goal. We had the eval form ready, and so we went to SolarCon and we showed the eval form and we said, "Yep, we're ready to calculate." It was probably another 4 weeks after that before we actually
say about a month.
Yeah, before we actually had calculations going. So we luckily our onboarding process is about a 3-week turnaround. So any clients that we signed up from SolarCon, they didn't actually need to run commissions until we were ready to put it in the software. But it was, this is part of the
clients,
issue with it.
The clients never knew that, like, they would have never have known that was happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, and this is it's funny now that I'm in the solar industry. I on my Instagram or Facebook, I get memes and stuff in the solar industry and in the software industry, and this is very common for software. They'll show you what they can do, but it's a puppet show. I don't like doing it, but it's like, look, I know it's not ready right now, but in a couple of weeks it will be. So our second MVP, we could actually calculate the commissions, and so we released that and started onboarding clients that we would actually calculate commissions for, and that's been a game changer. It's we've onboarded a lot more clients since then, but it revealed some new problems with our process. We've approached this from an accounting standpoint because even for the owners that we have in STAKT that have owned a solar dealer company, they have always used accountants to run commissions, and they still use accountants to run commissions. Now, the way accountants work is Excel spreadsheets, CSVs, all that kind of stuff. And so we built it so that it works for accountants. Really, we want any solar dealer or any CEO to be able to run commissions using the software. What we didn't realize is that anyone that's not an accountant, they hate CSVs. They hate having to get the numbers right in a CSV. And we had a lot of CSV heavy stuff. And so the next big release was like, okay, well, we need to make the upload process as simple and easy to use as possible. And so we started developing that. And then we realized that some of the reps, again, the reports that we were showing to the reps, they gave really good information, but it looks like a bank statement, which again, as an accountant is great. It gives me all the information I need. But some of the reps just couldn't understand it. It just didn't make sense to them. I was like, have you never looked at your bank statement before? Like, you don't know how to read your own bank statement? But just because I think they should understand it
doesn't mean they should.
No, exactly. And so along with the upload process, the other big release that we've got coming out this week actually is we have a mobile app for the reps. So each rep will have their own app. It's got really easy to see, really easy to use data that they can, calculate their commissions to test out to see what they're going to make on a job. They can see all their prior paychecks. They can look at the status of all their jobs. It's a really awesome platform. But I tell you this because our product is nowhere near where I want it to be. It's nowhere near finished, but we're already providing huge amounts of value to our customers. And we're constantly updating and adding features and adding ways to calculate based on, what our customers need to see or need to use within their company. So going back to the concept of an MVP, we are nowhere near perfection. And if we had waited until we thought the product was perfect, we would have released it missing some of the features that we've now added that we realize are crucial to the product. So if we're going back to the question of, if I'm going to start a company, what do I need to do? Don't wait until the product is perfect. Go out, start working on it, start selling it. Now, there's different types of companies. Some of them are a bit easier to get going. If you've got a service-based industry company like our accounting firm, as long as you know your stuff, you can go out and start selling people day one and start providing day one. And you're going to have to figure it out as you go. But if you have a company where you're going to provide physical products, or a software company, companies that require a little bit of back-end work before you can actually provide something to the customer, you need to get that product out as fast as you possibly can, and then get feedback. Now, obviously, there is a risk of you putting out a product that absolutely sucks.
Yeah.
You need to be upfront and clear with your customers that, look, you are an early adopter. Again, go back and read that book, The Lean Startup. He explains the process of telling your customers and explaining to them, you're one of my early adopters, and I want you to give me feedback, and I will iterate and improve this product based on your suggestions.
Yeah.
So you are going to be the one that is going to get the product that you want. People got to understand that early adopters, they actually are a big part of the production of a product. Whether or not they realize it, whether or not the company realizes that, early adopters are the ones that really lay the foundation for the product.
Well, I also think it's important to highlight the fact that we talked about this lean startup and just getting the product out there sooner rather than later. Since we started to work on this project and started to take on clients, there have been other companies that have started to try and do what it is we're doing, right? And again, had we waited to do that, you could say, well, maybe they only started to do that because you started to do it. Maybe so. Or would we have had the runway or the recognition to now say, hey, this is who we are, and get our stamp in the industry to say this is why we're the best, and
yeah,
I think that's also important to highlight. I also, during this, there were a couple other bumps that we experienced. They weren't really bumps, but they were good learning experiences that we had.
Oh yeah, we've had some bumps.
Well, we'll call them learning experiences, Michael. One of them was kind of each of our own unique individual abilities and some of the abilities of others that have worked for us or are currently working for us. I think one of the things that makes our ownership group unique is the different skill sets that everyone has. Some who have been involved in, some business acquisitions, mergers, some who have been heavily involved in sales, some who have been involved, like your dad, in software development, operationals. Other partners they've had other experiences in software development, and that alone, I think, has greatly increased our ability to be successful in this company. There's also been a couple learning opportunities where we've put ourselves in the position, like, for example, we were, our software has the ability to pay your reps directly from the software using a third-party software partner that we use called Every. And we needed to build out an API integration. So we actually hired someone as an employee to build that integration out. And I mean, hindsight's 2020, but maybe I'm the only one that thinks this, but I wish we wouldn't have. I wish we would have outsourced that.
Yeah.
We ended up losing money on that, I think.
Yeah. And let me tell you a little bit about a couple of things that Brady that you just commented on. First of all, our cap table is incredibly diverse, which
Yeah.
If you're going to start a company, don't just go to your best friend and say, let's start a company. If your best friend has the exact same experience as you, has the exact same skill set as you, it's a waste to have two of the same person on the team.
Not
We
that
don't
it's
have,
necessarily bad. It might work out,
it
but
might.
continue on with what you're saying.
Yeah. When an investor comes and looks at your company, if you have two people with the same skill set, they're going to say, why do you have two owners with the same skill set? And they're actually going to value your company less because of it. So if you know kind of how Brady and I work with High Country Finance, Brady does the tax stuff and I do the bookkeeping through CFO stuff. He does what I don't like to do and I do what he doesn't like to do. Now, if you put me in his shoes and you said, hey, I need you to file taxes for me, you would honestly be better off having your
We'd lose
grandma do it
clients.
than me. We would lose clients very fast, and same vice versa.
Exactly. Yeah, it is.
And that's why High Country Finance works so well, is because we both do what each other doesn't want to do. We function in different ways, and that's the same thing with STAKT. Everyone on the cap table has a different skill set, and so we're able to move the company along very quickly because of the different skill sets that we had, and everyone's able to focus on different aspects of it. But there came a point where it's like, okay, we need to start outsourcing and hiring some things out. And our first thought was, let's find an outsourced firm that can, just do a little bit of software development for us here and there on a project basis. And we hired one firm for a couple of weeks, and they promised they're going to get this done and that done and this done. They got none of it done in 2 weeks, and we were like, there's no way we're going to do this. So we got rid of them. And then a little bit later, we hired another firm based on a recommendation of one of the owners that had worked with them before. And it was just slow. And eventually it's like, we're wasting money on this. I think we were with them for about 2 or 3 months, actually.
I was going to say it had to have been at least 2 months.
Yeah. And so that was a huge pain. And so at that point, I don't know if you remember this, Brady, but I was like, we're never hiring an outsourced firm again. I was done with it. I said, these guys are wasting our time. They don't know what they're doing. And then I was like, we need to hire someone in-house. We've got to hire someone. They need to have experience in APIs and all this kind of stuff. And so we did. We did our research.
Pause really quick. Mind you, for those that are listening, we're maybe 6 months along into this process, 7 months along into this process, and we've already invested 6 figures into the project easily.
Yeah.
So just to give people a frame of mind. Mm-hmm. Continue.
So then at this point, it's like, okay, we need to hire someone else that they can do the stuff that our CTO doesn't do. And so we do a bit of research. We hire this guy, and he was honestly really good to work with.
Fantastic.
He was very knowledgeable. He was very hardworking, very dedicated, but he just wasn't able to produce fast enough. He wasn't he didn't have enough experience. And the thing is, in hindsight, if we did find someone that had enough experience, we would probably be paying double what we were paying him, and we couldn't afford that at the time. So it was, it was a double-edged sword. It just wasn't really going to work out. So we were kind of stuck at that point. But at the same time, we actually did hire one more. We tried one more outsourced firm just for the front-end development. They were just going to help us with front-end development. And they actually turned out to be phenomenal. We're still working with them today. They have been producing faster than anything that I would have expected in the software world. And they're producing very good work. And they're actually a huge part of what's making this work for us. So Brady and I have a philosophy in High Country Finance that we have also adopted in STAKT, and that's hire fast, fire fast. Mm-hmm. And that goes for internal employees or external agencies. It doesn't really matter what it is. You need to know what you should be expecting from your employees, your contractors, external agencies, whatever they may be. You need to know what the expectation should be. If your expectation is off, then you're going to waste money and waste time. And I think our expectations were off in the beginning. The 3 months that we spent with that one firm, we should have fired them within the first 2 weeks. Looking back, it was very clear that they were not giving us what we needed. So you got to understand what your expectations should be. And when you know what your expectations should be, it becomes a lot easier to know when to fire an agency or an individual. And sometimes that's hard. When I spoke to this full-time software developer that was working on the APIs, and let him go, that was a really difficult conversation for me. I did
Yeah.
not enjoy that. Honestly, I wish that we could have kept him because he's the right type of person. He's the kind of hire that we would like. Unfortunately,
I just don't think it was right timing. It was
yeah,
more
we
of a
need him in like
timing
2
issue.
years when we have
Yes.
a team built out, rather than him being the first person on the team. It
Yes.
just wasn't the right time. So that is a struggle. You start out, you have the owners, and no one works like an owner. That's one of the things you've got to understand is
Yeah.
you as an owner are going to put blood, sweat, and tears into your company, and you're going to be the best salesperson. You're going to be the best at operations. You're going to be the best at software development, whatever it's going to be. When you hire someone, the chances of you finding a person that is going to work like that, that's going to be as good as you are, it's almost zero. You have to strike gold. And if you do strike gold, chances are they're an entrepreneur at heart and they're going to leave
and
you.
they're going to leave and do their own thing.
Exactly. So you got to be careful with that.
I think so. It's funny because we actually went to dinner last night with some friends. And this year he's left his job that he was working at. He actually had a track. He was on par to become an owner and a partner in the business that he was going to buy out one of the partners, but he left because he just wasn't happy. Well, he got into another industry, and I think they've been struggling. They've been feeling that kind of pressure of entrepreneurship where they've gone a couple months with living off of their savings. And I think they kind of had to come to Jesus conversation the other day. We talked about it last night. And like I mentioned earlier, when we were talking about these companies that we were working with, we were 8 months into the project and we'd already put well over 6 figures into this project, over $100,000. And, we're 18, 19 months in at this point, probably closer to 20. And we're very close to, I would say, $250,000 into this project, and, as a business owner, we've gone through this. Okay, you have an idea. How do you determine proof of concept? To obtain proof of concept, to operational, which we are operational. There's a lot that happens during this time frame, and you sacrifice a lot. And I have to give the largest shout out to my wife and your wife because they put up with us. Like there's a lot of sacrifice that goes into what we're doing, and the reward can be great. But it's a lot of sacrifice. There's a lot that goes into it, and you have to be willing to kind of put your skin in the game and
I actually want to comment on that a little because if you're not married and or you're not with a partner right now, and you are an entrepreneur at heart and you want to be an entrepreneur, you need to understand that who you choose as a lifelong partner is probably going to be the most important decision on whether or not you'll be successful.
Yes.
So I'm going to tell you 2 stories, or I give you 2 bits of advice. Number one, Brady and I, with a bunch of other business owners that we're quite close with, we were at an event about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. It was a while ago now.
It's been about 2.5, almost 3 years, I think.
And Ed Milet was the keynote speaker at that event, and we actually paid for whatever package it was that we got to be in a smaller group setting with Ed Milet after his.
I'm going to be honest. I don't know how we ended up in that room. Because
there you go. I don't know either.
And I don't think we were VIPs. So
well, we got in somehow. So there was probably about 50 people in that room, and he did a Q&A. And one of our friends, he raised his hand and he asked a question. I can't remember the exact question. You might remember, Brady, but it was something about like your wife. Like, what does your wife feel about? How
does your wife handle your intensity in business, and how do you
along those lines?
Yeah, it was something along those lines.
Yeah, and I actually pulled out my phone and recorded this answer because And half the audience did. It was so funny. Everyone
Yeah, I
wanted to
did
know
too.
the answers to this. But his answer, I think, would probably shock a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
He basically said a lot of entrepreneurs out there go out and try and find a woman or a spouse or a partner that has a hustle mindset just like they do. And I love that he said this. He goes, if you feel like you need another person with that kind of drive and that kind of hustle, then you don't have enough hustle to make it. And I was like, you know what?
Wow.
That really hits home. Like,
Yes.
you need to have that drive on your own. What he explained is, he said, my wife is nothing like me. She does not like hustling. She doesn't like being out in the open.
Yeah.
She likes to, go on long walks on the beach, and
And hang out at
she's
home
an
in her
introvert,
sweats.
really.
Like that. That's really what he
Exactly.
said. Yeah.
So he kind of explained what you're looking for in a wife or a spouse or partner, someone that is going to be your partner in life and partner in business, but not the same way that you would like own a business with them.
Yeah.
And he essentially said, you need someone that is going to support you no matter what. He said, I make some crazy wild decisions in business,
Yeah.
and my wife loves and respects me enough and supports me in my decisions that when I say I'm going to make this crazy decision, she says, I know you can crush it. Go ahead, go out and take over the world. And that's something and this is the second thing that I wanted to explain. That's something that my wife has just inherently done from the time that we first got married. When we first got married, I was making barely any money. Her family is very traditional, conservative when it comes to money. They're a Dave Ramsey kind of family. So she is naturally, she doesn't like debt. She doesn't like taking a lot of financial risks. But when we got married, obviously I take a ton of financial risks, and like I'll use debt to my advantage as much as I can. And she'll talk it through with me, but at the end of the day, she trusts my decision when it comes to how we're going to make money, how I'm going to grow a business, all this kind of stuff. We bought a house way before she would have bought a house if it was just up to her. We rented out the basement, and it turned into a great thing. But she only did that because she really trusted me. When I started these companies, I'm like, hey babe, look, I'm gonna be putting tens of thousands of dollars into this. I'm gonna be investing this money, and she's like, look, if you believe that this is right, I 100% support you. You need someone like that. If you don't have a spouse that is 100% behind you and backing you, if your spouse is questioning every decision you make and telling you it's not going to work, and if they're stressing about it, it's not going to work. Now, entrepreneurs are really good at hiding their stress. I stress all the time, but I keep hustling and I keep working, and that stress probably helps me to work harder.
The gray in your beard has become more apparent over the last 18 months.
Exactly. So I think that the fact that my wife just trusts me and supports me and has faith in me and what I'm doing, it allows me to calm down when I'm with her. I stress when I'm at work, I'm hustling when I'm at work, but when I come home, which, when you work from home, it means walk out of your office. When I come home, it's like, okay, like things are good. My wife believes in me, and as long as she believes in me and things are good at home, then I can take on the world.
Yeah. No, again, like I said, McKenna and Carrie, they're fantastic, and we appreciate them, and because they continue to put up with us,
Yeah.
I will have to say though, one thing we kind of highlighted at the beginning when we were talking about proof of concept, how to determine if you're going to be able to make money in your business. I will say we do take risks. Like Mike talked a little bit about some of the decisions that we make, and the fact that we have invested quite a bit of money into this venture, but they're calculated risks. I think that's a big difference. Now, we've gone through proof of concept. We've gone through the fact that, hey, in 18 months, we've taken this product from nothing, an idea, to now we're looking at, and we won't go over numbers, but we're looking at some conversations with private equity groups and venture capital groups. Which is, I mean, our goal. When it's kind of interesting, maybe 4 months ago, us as owners, we went through an exercise. And and we had a list of questions, and one of the questions was what is your perfect exit? Meaning if we were to exit the company, what would that perfect exit be? And nearly everyone, I'll say nearly everyone because Mike was the only one that wasn't saying the exact same thing, but nearly everyone said that we want to get to a point where we could sell our equity for $10 million a piece, right? So
I was just 10 times more than that.
Mike was like a lot more than that, which I hate. I mean, honestly, let's be honest. All of us want to sell for more, but that was kind of like, okay, if we got to that point, yeah, maybe we could turn that over to someone else who could run it better and maybe grow it bigger, and we'd take a minority position in the company. And I think it's important for people to understand that when you start this business, I personally, over the course of my years, have come to the realization that you should have some sort of exit plan. And that's even evolved for us with High Country Finance over the course of the past 12 months, where we've had different conversations, and sometimes the conversation is, yeah, maybe we should sell it. We've had people that have given us some offers for High Country Finance, but our exit strategy for High Country Finance has changed, and rather than an exit in equity strategy, it's an exit in time strategy. We want other people who are operating High Country Finance to be able to have ownership in High Country Finance, become partners, and operate the business so that we can spend our time advising them, maybe helping some clients, but also doing other things like what we're doing in STAKT. And so what's your thoughts on the whole, without getting into our specifics about what that's going to look like, but what's your idea on the exit? How should a person get to that point? Maybe what are some things that they should look for while determining what that exit might look like, or the value of what that exit might look like? What are some of those things?
Yeah. So first and foremost, if you don't think about your exit strategy from the very beginning, you can actually shoot yourself in the foot and set yourself up to fail. So
Yeah.
My brother-in-law actually works for quite a large company. They brought him on specifically because they want him to help get the financials ready to sell the company. He's worked in investment banking for a long time. That's what he does. He knows how to value companies and how to get them ready to sell for the maximum possible value. And when we were talking about this company, he said one of the biggest problems that we have is we can't use the financials from 3 years ago because they're just crap. They weren't using they weren't using accountants that were doing things correctly just because they were trying to save a penny. And I'm not like, obviously this is a bit of a plug for High Country Finance, get your accounting right. But I'm not just talking about accounting, I'm talking about every department. You need to understand what an investor is going to look for. If that's what you want to do, if you want to sell to investors, then you need to plan for that early on, because investors are going to look at your previous 5 years. And if you've only got 2 years of good data and the first 3 years of crap data, you're going to actually dilute your valuation. Now, if you're not looking to sell, and like Brady talked about with High Country Finance, if you're looking to just scale the business but get to a point where you sit in more of an advisory role, you need to know what that looks like. So who do you need to hire? What kind of processes do you need to put in place? What do you need to pay those people? What kind of equity do you need to give them to keep them incentivized to keep growing the company? There's a lot of things to consider in both of those exit strategies. And there are many other types of exit strategies. It doesn't necessarily have to be just sell or let the company be run by a general manager. There's lots of ways that you can exit. So understanding where your goal is, and that goal may change. You don't have to stick to that goal. Like Brady said, sometimes we've thought about selling High Country Finance eventually, and other times right now our goal is to, that's our retirement plan. High Country Finance just keeps bringing in money, and we'll keep providing value to High Country Finance, but we will dilute our ownership by giving it to key players that will run the business on the day-to-day. So again, I'm going to make a plug for books. There are so many incredibly intelligent people out there that have done what you want to do. It doesn't matter how you want to exit. There are incredibly intelligent people out there that have done what you want to do. Go find 5 different books on your exit strategy and read them. Now, what may happen is you'll read those books and be like, based on what these people are telling me, I actually don't want that exit strategy.
Yeah, you may change it.
You'll change. And that's
Yeah.
totally fine. But now now you have an understanding of what you would need to do. And if you still stick with that exit strategy, you can start planning for it. But if you don't plan from the very beginning on how to get an exit strategy, it's probably not going to work out very well for you, or not as well as it could
Yeah.
if you didn't do it otherwise.
I would say I would also add to this tail end of the conversation, some of the things that we're doing in STAKT as well is talking to individuals that can get us to a point where we could exit for our perfect exit, and I think that's important to highlight too, whether you're looking to bring on capital, looking to bring on a strategic partner. The one thing that we've realized with High Country Finance is let's hire or let's bring on capital for where we want to be in a year from now or 6 months from now or 5 years from now, not where do I want to be in 2 months or where am I at right now, because again, you'd shoot yourself in the foot and only be able to progress so much. So one of the things that we're doing is we're only talking to individuals from a capital standpoint that have taken SaaS companies to a revenue of X, right? Like that is one of our goals is we want to get to an MRR and an annual recurring revenue of a certain dollar amount. And truth be told, I think that we're also all on the same page that once the company gets to a certain point, it would behoove us to put people in key positions that can take the company public or that can take the company for a larger exit just because they're the experts. Like we were talking earlier about, the hire that we made or bringing on these outsourced technology firms like that ideally is what we're going to do because that's only going to benefit the company, truthfully, I think another important thing that I'll highlight that I don't think is said enough. One hard thing that we went through, this was actually extremely hard. We were 7 months into the company and we kind of went through a little restructure based on capital that had been put into the business or time that had been worked in the business. We went through a restructure and that involved some changes in the equity. And that was an extremely difficult conversation to have. But I think there's two things that I wanted to highlight from this conversation, and then I'll let you add whatever you feel like you want to add. One is I think the expectation needs to be set from the beginning what each partner or what each individual in the company is going to be doing. Because I will say I don't think we were as specific or clear about that as we should have been. Because that was one of the reasons why we sat down and restructured equity. The other one is, and I know some people won't agree with me, but I would rather have 10% of a watermelon than 100% of a grape. And you've heard me say that a lot. We've gone through some other partner acquisitions or buyouts, and some of those have been really nasty. Some of them have been really good. But I would rather have 10% of a watermelon than 100% of a grape. And I think that mindset only helps individuals reach the next level in business that they probably couldn't have attained otherwise. And that was apparent in kind of this equity mashup that we did. Thoughts?
Yeah. So first of all, I'll make a comment on one of the other equity experiences that we've had, not the one to do with STAKT. When you go to start a company, I can't express this strongly enough. Be very careful of people that are trying to take advantage of you and the hustle that you have and the ideas that you have. Because what you'll get is a very experienced business person that will come in and say, I'm just going to advise and invest a bit of money and give me 50% of the company or whatever that's going to be. When you first start that company, yes, you may need cash as capital, but no amount of cash, in my opinion, is worth 50% of a company or that large portion of the company at the beginning. Because the company, it's not worth money right now. That's not really what you need in the long term. It's what you need right now, but in the long term, that amount of money, whether they give you $10,000 or $100,000 for 50% of this company, in a year, 2 years, 3 years, you're going to look at this and be like, I have 50% of my company that is being wasted right now because this person is doing nothing.
For $32,000. I know exactly the situation you're talking about, and I just want you to know that number will probably forever be ingrained in my mind.
Yeah.
Because that's what it was.
Yeah. $32,000 seems like a lot of money when you're first starting a company. It's like, wow, this person's going to put $32,000 into this company that can keep us running for X amount of months. But a year, 2 years into it, when that person was literally doing nothing for the company and all they'd done is put $32,000 in, and then it's like, okay, well, that equity is a complete waste. So
it was they cost us $300,000. That will single-handedly be the best investment that individual ever made, truthfully. And I'm glad to say that I provided the best investment for that individual. But yeah, that really, and that I wouldn't say it's hurt us since, but it has. I mean, it's inhibited us from growing in other ways that we would have liked to. Besides the fact that we've doubled, if not tripled, our business since that exit, like truthfully. But that was the single greatest investment that individual's ever made. And can't say it's not,
So the two things from that. Number one, be aware of sharks that are just trying to take advantage of you when you're starting your business. And number two, don't sell equity for cash when you start your company. You need someone that is willing to actually work on and in the company with you. Now, yes, you want equity. You want cash. So that's an important part of it. And if you have no cash and they're willing to put in, let's say I have no cash, I'm willing to work full time on this 100%. So I'm going to need a salary. I may bring on a partner that's going to provide the cash, but they still need to provide something else.
Yeah.
And if they're not providing anything else, then I'm not giving them more than 10% of the company, because that hustle, like putting your life on the line for this company, is worth far more than some cash that's just going to keep you going for a few months. So that's a really important aspect of it. As Brady said, and this is coming back to more of the conversation of STAKT and our equity, when you think about providing equity, you need to consider buy-in. Now, when you hear the word buy-in, you're thinking, oh, like how much money are they putting in? I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about the emotional buy-in of each individual.
How excited are they about the product?
Yes. And you also need to consider, where does this person want to see this go? And obviously that can change. The reason why we had this equity conversation is because half of the owners had a very different idea of where the company was going to go, and it just didn't align. We didn't all agree on it. So it actually created two factions. Me, Brady, and one of the other owners were basically like, we do not want to go where these other owners want us to go. Let's split the company. Essentially was how the conversation went. And when we approached that conversation, it turned out really well. I think the best outcome was reached.
Yeah.
But it was a very difficult conversation because I don't think that we set things up correctly to begin with. I think that when we first set them up, we weren't fully aligned on where the company was going to go in the long run. We didn't even talk about it, so of course we weren't aligned. But also we did separate equity based on investment, based on who was putting in what amount of money, and that was incorrect.
And at that point it was money and time in the business.
Yeah, and so it wasn't the right way of going about the money. So here's how I want you to go about your equity. When you start a business, someone's going to need to be working in that business. Mm-hmm. That needs to be taken into consideration. But what also needs to be taken into consideration is who can the business not function without?
Yeah.
So if you don't take that into consideration and you give that person very little equity, you're going to end up with a disgruntled CEO, COO, CTO, whatever their role is, that is not going to provide. If you're the person that's putting money in and you know that the other person is the one that's actually going to make this happen, like they are the person that will make this happen, you need to make sure that their equity and whatever you're going to pay them is exciting for them and makes sense for them. Because if you
Yeah.
don't, then yes, they may stay in the company, but they're not going to produce like you want them to. And good chance they may eventually leave. They'll sell off their equity. And if you have that key hire or key person or key investor, founder leave the company, you might be able to replace them, but the chances of you getting that same output is actually very low. So make sure that you look at buy-in. Make sure that you correctly allocate equity based on who's going to be working in the company and who the company can't go without, and then talk about cash. Cash is the last thing that you talk about. Now, if one person says, I can put in $100,000, another person says, I can put in $10,000, you're going to get that amount paid back eventually anyway. Yes, there's more risk for the person that's putting in $100,000, but that risk is not worth much in the equity. Because if the company does well, that $100,000 is going to turn into $10 million. It doesn't matter if that $10 million is worth 10% or 50%.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to the 10% of a watermelon over 100% of a grape,
Yeah.
And that conversation is,
yeah.
I think the conversation is just different depending on what the situation is.
Yeah. Whoever is putting money into a company, if they will not budge on getting a huge portion of the company, get rid of them. That's not the person that you want to invest with. Exactly. Yeah. Go to your family and ask for some cash. They're not going to ask for 50% of the company. If that's all that someone is putting into the company, then you can go take out an SBA loan. You can take out a personal loan. Like, do that stuff. Don't give up that much equity for a crappy deal.
No, this is good. I think the other part that I just want to finish on is the fact of where, and it's funny, we had a conversation in one of our owner meetings for STAKT just last week, and the conversation ended up being, there was a question and everyone ended up being on the same exact page without having any prior discussions about it anyways. But I think, like, for us, it's so funny because, and one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation was because, like, we've taken this idea, which at first sounded like such a silly idea. It was almost like, I mean, are you serious? Like, you think we can do anything with this? To more of a, wow, like, the opportunity is endless. And now the conversation is, great, well, we need this calculation done by February X so that we can take it to this industry, because if we can take it to this industry, then it increases our opportunities. And we also are like, okay, great, our product is we can take our product into other countries. Like, they sell solar in Australia. To be honest with you, by the end of this year, I want to have a company in Australia onboarded into STAKT. Like, that would be a goal of mine, because I think, like, we can do it. Like, yeah. It's so funny because our opportunity is a little endless right now, it seems like. And sure, there's maybe this, like, newlywed stage where we're just excited about the product, and we haven't been punched in the teeth too many times yet. We have been, but not enough to keep us down. But, like, it's exciting to take this project, and we talk about the roller coaster of emotions that come with being an entrepreneur. You have really low lows, but the highs outweigh the lows, and it's fun to build that. But that again, it's just fun because we're all in alignment on, hey, the opportunities are endless. So any other thoughts to that? Any other closing thoughts on that?
Yeah, my closing thought on that is, if you want to start a business, just start a business. Like, you may fail, but what the hell, just keep hustling. Like, I can't even tell you how much better my life is. Add all the stress and everything into it. I can't tell you how much better my life is being a business owner as opposed to being an employee. I still had stress as an employee. If you're a good, hardworking employee, you're going to have stress. You're going to be put in situations and positions where you're going to have a lot of stress. But that kind of stress is so different. And the stress and the anxiety of an entrepreneur, so much more worth it. And maybe start just a little side hustle to begin with. You don't necessarily have to quit your day job, but you just get started. Get something going. Look for that blue ocean. Look for an opportunity that's going to, really set you apart from the rest. And if you don't mind, Brady, I'll just, for all the solar companies out there, I'll give a little plug for STAKT.
Please.
So that you understand what STAKT is, what we do. So we're a commission platform where you essentially, your jobs get entered into STAKT. You can build a direct API into STAKT so that your job information will all come in. STAKT will calculate commissions, overrides, adders, whatever it may be. Everything you can think of, we've got it in STAKT. It has the brains that you always wish your accountant actually did have in a software. It will calculate it all. It will provide incredible reporting to your reps. As I said, we've got a mobile app that's coming out this week. And that app is just going to be a game changer in the industry. And then you actually process payroll through STAKT. So it's all in one place. Yeah. So if you're interested in checking us out, go to stakt.io. So that's STAKT.io. Check us out, book a demo. I'd love to show you what the product does and how everything's functioning. But also, we're going to be at RE Plus next week, so we have a booth there. If you're interested, and if you're going to RE Plus, then come hit us up. We'll be doing live demos. We can show you how your comp plan specifically will work. And this is going to be a game changer for your business. Everyone that we've onboarded has just raved about how much time this has saved them, the errors that just don't happen anymore because of STAKT. Yeah. It's going to save you money. It's going to save you a headache. Your reps are going to be way happier. You're going to keep your best reps. There's just a million ways that this is going to really change your business.
And if you fail, what the hell? That's I'm gonna title. That's the title of the episode. That was a good one. No, shameless plug for STAKT. It's been an awesome opportunity for us to show our clients what money they can save, and all of our clients have ended up making money. It's crazy to me how many errors go into commission calculation, and we've been able to eliminate that and help our clients keep more money. That's what our goal is. If anyone does have questions about STAKT, again, you can reach out directly to me through social media, through Instagram, direct message me. I'm happy to connect you with our team. You can also email us, either Brady at STAKT, STAKT.io, or Mike at STAKT, STAKT.io. And we'd be happy to show it to you. For those who liked the episode, I'd love it if you liked and subscribed. You can follow us on YouTube and follow the YouTube channel there, or follow me on social media where you can get a lot more free content. Give us some comments. Tell us what you liked or what you didn't like, and we'll help improve it. If there's anyone else you'd like to see on the show, let me know, and I'd be happy to invite them on. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day, and thanks for listening to Slackin' Off.
Thanks for tuning in to Slackin' Off with Brady Slack.